Hello, Albertans. Tonight I'm pleased to announce I've completed my 2 books, The Rules of Politics and Alberta Independence, The Real Legal Path. I've been sitting on these books for well over a week now, debating about whether I should release them or not. And it's been a struggle as I flip through the pages and look at it over and over. Is that the right thing to do at this time? I worked so hard building a party, going through a struggle with so many Albertans, an epic journey that was highly pressurized, highly, pressed by media, attacked every which way. And you know what? As much as I believe that book could generate the wealth I need to help me go forward in my aspirations, I think it would also be a detriment. And, I've decided now, and you're going to see in this following presentation on a week-by-week basis as I release lesson plans from my books. One, The Rules of Politics, and the other, The Alberta Independence, for those in the Alberta Partnership Agreement. They're going to get the entirety of the book explained and taught to them over the course of the next 2 years, ready a year in advance for the following election. We're going to do something that's never been done before in Canadian history and Alberta history or any other province, and that is give the power to the people. We're going to take the average Joe Jane, the uneducated voter, we're going to make them stronger, more knowledgeable, ready for the world stage, ready for the federal government, and ready for the provincial government. They're not going to be afraid to take on the system because they're going to have the tools and skills to get that done, the legal path. It was a hard decision to come to. I thought about having my greatest dream is to have academia, take my knowledge, take my books, chew them up, and I really wanted a stage. But you know what? I think it would be detrimental. I think it would ruin the movement, and it would ruin the whole reason why I did this, why I got into this, and why so much work was put into it. I'm going to put that book free to those loyal to Alberta who have the courage to come forward and stand, sign the Alberta Partnership Agreement, and go forward with children and the future of all Albertans. For the people, by the people. They're going to be the solution. And that's what my books are for. And when this is finished at the end of this 2-year journey and everything's assembled by those brave Albertans, I will release both those books to the public. Until then, the public is welcome to take these excerpts, these public lessons, and take them in. And if you feel that you want to be a part of this and you want to know what the rest of the book entails, you're going to take the email app to win for you at gmail.com. You're going to reach out and it's all going to roll out for you, and you're going to get that free book too. Both books, Rules of Politics, Alberta Independence, The Real Legal Path, and no one's going to take that from you. It's going to be 100% free by me today. That's my promise. For anybody who takes the Alberta Partnership Agreement, takes that plunge, signs that contract, you're going to get both books, not only read to you, not only in written copy, page after page, but you're going to get that private education. This is the gift and the ultimate thing I can do for Alberta and Canada. And you're all going to see that. Thank you very much. Take lesson 1. Tell me what you think. Have a good night. Lesson 1. The Canadian System, Federal and Provincial, Distribution of Power. Federal powers. Number 1, who controls them? Number 2, what they control. Number 3, how are they regulated? We start with the federal powers under who controls the Canadian political system and the Tier 1 legal authorities. We begin with the arrow up on the first legal authority of a political party on the federal level, CEO and auditor. These are the only two legal positions of the federal party. Regardless of what you've heard or what you've known, none of it's real. The only two real legal binding members are CEO and auditor. They create the party leader, or the party leader starts the party and assigns himself. That federal leader is the only person in Canada who's capable of becoming the federal prime minister, the ultimate power in Canada. Underneath the federal prime minister, we see his power over House and Senate. This is the Tier 1 legal authority. Federal powers. Number 2. What do they control? Well, first, party CEO and the auditor alone decide who can be leader, who will be in an EDA, two legal positions in absence of a leader, and they are subject only to a leader. Number 2, party leader can remove anyone from any position by law, remove any EDA, bylaw, constitution, or policy. They are the only one to sign off and sign on CAs at will. Number 3, only a party leader can become prime minister by law. Number 4, prime minister is both head of House and head of Senate. The PM whips MPs in House and appoints Senate according to friendship, wealth, or fame. Federal powers. Number 3, how they are regulated. Number 1, CEO and auditor are regulated by the Elections Canada, who runs with 2 acts by both House and Senate, which are controlled by the Prime Minister of Canada. Number 2, leader is subject to Elections Canada, and 2 acts the leader has full authority over, subject only to becoming Prime Minister, or a Prime Minister changes the acts voted by the PMs, House, and Senate. Number 3, Prime Minister is subject to the binding world laws of the UNSC, the Canadian Constitution, and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Prime Minister can only be held to World Court, Supreme Court of Canada ruling, official opposition control over House and Senate, limited constitutional powers of provincial legislatures who win the World Courts or Supreme Canada Court ruling, and by vote once every 4 years by the electorate. Number 4, House is regulated by the Prime Minister, Senate, and the electorate inside the electoral district boundaries. List of electorates once every 4 years. The House members are also subject to the Supreme Court of Canada's ruling. Senate is regulated by the Prime Minister and the Supreme Court of Canada. Provincial powers. 1, who controls them? 2, what do they control? 3, how they are regulated. Now, on to provincial powers. Number 1, who controls it? Let's look at the provincial political system at the bottom. You'll see 2 arrows, Tier 1 legal authority, and to the right, Tier 1 legal authority. As you go up, you see there's CFO, President, or Executive Director, and I say or. Arrows of power go straight up to Provincial Party Leader. From there, Provincial Party Leader is the only one to become the Premier. His power goes down to the Provincial Assembly, and it also goes up against the Federal Prime Minister, who, as you can see, the federal prime minister has more power over a premier. And that is decided by the Supreme Court of Canada, the ultimate law. And then again, you see House and Senate. And as you see, Senate comes down into House, and House goes back and forth between provincial legislatures. Provincial powers. Number 2, what do they do? 1. Party CFO and president or executive director alone decide who can be leader, who will be in a CA, 2 legal positions, in absence of a leader, and are subject only to a leader. 2. Party leader can remove anyone from any position by law, remove any party CA, bylaw, constitution, or policy. They are also the only ones to sign off and on CIAs at will. They can cast MLA candidates in or out. 3. Only a party leader can become premier by law. 4. Premier is head of the legislature. The premier whips MLAs and legislature. A premier can cast an MLA in or out of the party caucus. Provincial powers. 3. How are they regulated? 1. CFO and president or executive director are regulated by the Elections Alberta, who runs with 2 acts by the legislature, which are controlled by the Premier of Alberta. 2. Leaders subject to Elections Alberta, and 2 acts the leader has full authority over, subject only to becoming the Premier, or a Premier changes the acts voted by the Premier's legislature. 3. Premier is subject to the Canadian Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Premier can only be held to World Court, Supreme Court of Canada ruling, official opposition control over legislature, limited constitutional powers of provincial legislatures who win world courts, Superior Court of Alberta, or the Supreme Court of Canada ruling, and by vote once every 4 years by the electorate. 4. Legislature is regulated by the Premier and the electorate inside the constituency boundaries. List of electorates once every 4 years. The legislated members are also subject to the Superior Court and also the ultimate Supreme Court of Canada's ruling. Distribution of power, federal and provincial. Not for public release. This concludes my presentation to the public. A few excerpts from my book. And this is as far as we're going to go with the public this week. So if you liked what you heard and what you learned, and you want to get into the very big detail and the bread and butter of it, please follow the email coming next. It's time to climb on board the Alberta Partnership presentation. Apt to win for you at gmail.com. Just send an email, just say hello. Email today, it's free. The cost of complacency costs Alberta every day. Alberta Partnership presentation. Apt to win for you at gmail.com. Make the email today. Just say hello. No university can teach you this hands-on. Academia is funded and regulated too. The Alberta Partnership presentation. Apt to win for you at gmail.com. Be the solution. Your investment of 1 hour a week. Don't delay.